The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices.
They're mine. They're not yours. You had no right to them when you were alive, and you have no right to them when you're dead. You say Hershey. That's what it sounded like. Good, you know who I am. And you know I'm not playing. You're going to let those women go. In Jesus' name, you're going to let those women go.
Is there a demon here watching us right now? Watching us right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr. With me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody?
Tonight's going to be a fun show because we're going to be talking about probably, in my opinion, my humble opinion, and you may have a different opinion, that's fine. But in my opinion, probably the granddaddy of all conspiracy theories. This is the one that got me into conspiracy theories and probably most people into conspiracy theories. And that is JFK, that assassination. The reason we're talking about that tonight is because everybody's favorite president, Donald Trump, just signed an executive order today. As we're speaking, it is Thursday night, and it happened today that he signed an executive order totally declassifying all of the files on the JFK assassination, the RFK assassination, and the MLK assassination. So we got John Kennedy, we got Robert Kennedy, and we got Martin Luther King Jr. All three of those assassinations, all of those classified files are being declassified and released. Now, some people might say, well, yeah, he'll declassify some of it, but we won't ever get all of the information. Well, that's not what he said. I watched him sign it. And while he was signing it, he said everything will be declassified. He said everything will be revealed. That people have been waiting decades for this, and it's finally going to happen to where all of it's coming out. So I'm super stoked and excited. And regardless of how you feel about Trump, I was making a joke earlier calling him everybody's favorite president because I know that there are people out there that just hate that man with a passion, and it's kind of psychotic. Honestly, it's crazy. But regardless of how you feel about it, I think we can all agree in the paranormal and conspiracy world that this is an amazing, amazing thing. This is like the golden ring that we've all been trying for so long, is to get these files actually released. And I'm super, super stoked about it. So I thought tonight, since we don't actually have any information yet, he just signed the order. So we haven't seen any of the files. But I'm so excited and jazzed about this, I thought it'd be a fun show just to kind of talk about it. And maybe kind of give our opinions on what we think happened in those cases. Of who was responsible, who did it. You know, was it the same people that did all three? Was it lone assassins? Like they say, like, you know, with Kennedy, was it just Lee Harvey Oswald? With RFK, was it Sirhan? With MLK, I forget that guy's name. He's some white redneck guy. I don't remember. He had a three name. You ever notice all assassins have like a three name? I mean, we all do. We all have a first, middle, and last name, but we never get called our name, right? But for some reason, when you assassinate somebody important, they refer to you as your full name. I guess it goes back to like when you're a kid and you get in trouble, and your mom will yell your entire name, and then you know you really screwed up, and you're gonna get it. You know, whenever I would hear that, James Franklin Hershey Jr., I'd be like, oh shit, what did I do? I'm in big trouble now. Worst time, let me tell you this story real quick, and then we'll get back to what we're actually talking about. This doesn't have anything to do with anything, but it's just a fun little story from my past. For those that watch this show and know me through the shows, you know I'm a big nerd. I'm a science guy. I'm a genius. I'm that guy, right? And when I was a little kid, I was very interested in space and all that stuff, obviously, because that's what I ended up going on and doing. But I was also extremely interested in entomology. I wanted to study bugs, insects. They fascinate me to this day. And as a child, I would go out and catch any insects I could, and I would keep them in all kinds of different containers in my room. So I would have like little 10-gallon aquariums that would have like tons of worms in it, or different things. I would have butter dishes with grasshoppers in it, butter dishes with, like the butter tubs with crickets in it, that kind of thing, right? Anything I could catch, I would bring in and I would keep it, and I would just study it and look at it. And then when it eventually died, I would take a pin and I would put through it and put it on a piece of styrofoam. And I'd have like these styrofoam boards on my walls with all these different insects on the boards and what they were and all that kind of stuff. So I was really, really into that. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. And my mother was not a fan of that, but she allowed it because I was very interested. Well, I have a little brother, and my little brother is kind of the opposite of me. I'm super smart. I'm artistic. I'm a writer. I'm a musician. I do those things, right? It's all creative. My brother is not creative, but my brother is a technical genius. He can build anything. He's like a super mechanic. He can fix anything, build anything. My father was the same way. So we're kind of opposite, but also like I'm a good guy. I'm a pastor. I'm a Christian. I love God. My brother is a Christian as well, but he is a devious little fucker, especially when he was little. He was like the most evil dude you ever wanted to see. And he would constantly do horrible things to get me in trouble. Like he'd hide in the closet, and when I walked by, he'd jump out and hit me in the back of the head with a G.I. Joe tank, just so I'd chase him and try to beat his ass, and then he'd scream bloody murder, and then I'd get in trouble for it. One day when I was out catching bugs, he went into my room and he let all of my bugs go in the house. Like took all of the containers, opened them up, and spread them throughout the house. So mom gets home from work and the whole house is filled with bugs. I mean, there's grasshoppers and crickets and just everything you can imagine everywhere, jumping around and making a mess of the place. Now, mom does not like any of that kind of stuff. Like to this day, she still will not check pockets when she does laundry because she would be checking my pockets and she'd find snakes and all kinds of stuff. I'd pick up all these little critters and put them in my pocket to take them home and look at them later. And sometimes I'd forget that I'd put them in my pocket. And then when the clothes go into the laundry, she'd be reaching in to pull out the pocket and there's a snake or something in there. And so she doesn't check pockets to this day. But she's not a fan of those kind of things, right? So she comes in and sees all these bugs flopping everywhere, and she has a conniption fit, and it just goes off, man. And from that day forward, I was banned from ever bringing insects into the house again. So it pretty much killed my career as an entomologist because I was not allowed to have insects and study them and anything anymore because of my little brother, because he let go all of the bugs. Anyway, like I said, that has absolutely nothing to do with anything. But what I was saying was, who do you think did all of this stuff? Was it the lone assassins, like they said, or is there a larger conspiracy going on here? What, like, that involves like the government or certain three-letter agencies, that kind of thing? Or was it a foreign power? Or was it like the mafia? Because I know in the JFK assassination, a lot of people thought that was a mob hit, that the mob was involved in that. And that would also carry over to the RFK assassination because if you remember correctly, RFK was John F. Kennedy's attorney general. And he went after the mob like crazy. He went after Hoffa. He went after Carlos Marcello, especially from New Orleans. He deported him. He took and rounded him up in the middle of the night and dropped him off in a rainforest and just said, "See ya." And that dude had to find his way back. And so they hated his ass. And there's a lot of people that say that the mob helped get JFK elected in Chicago. They like rigged it. And there's a reason that he won the presidency. That's what people say. I don't know if that's true or not true. I have absolutely no idea. Not weighing in on either side of that because I don't know. But the theory is that they helped get him elected. So they were awfully pissed off when he turned on them and allowed his little brother to go after them the way he did. So there's a lot of people that say that there was mob involvement in that. So the basic question we want to talk about tonight is, what do we think? And then down in the comment section when this hits YouTube, let us know what you guys think. Who's responsible for all that? Is it just like they said it was? Just some rando that ended up shooting RFK as he was passing through? Just some kitchen worker? Or does this all go back to like the CIA and MK Ultra and all that kind of stuff where it's like brainwashing these people, mind control? Because Sirhan said that he had no memory of doing it. He said he knows he did it because he saw himself do it on TV. So he knows that it was him, but he don't remember doing it at all. He has no memory of it. He remembers going to work that day and then being in custody. He doesn't remember even seeing RFK, but he shot him. So what's up with all that? I mean, what do you guys think? First off, let me give my opinion. We'll take these one at a time. JFK. JFK, I believe, was most likely the CIA that did that. They might have had help from the mafia as well, because there was hard feelings between the mafia, especially Carlos Marcella and JFK, because they were awfully pissed off at the way Robert Kennedy was treating them and going after him. So they were not happy about that at all. So I think that most likely that's who did it. I think the CIA wanted him gone because he wouldn't give them the Vietnam War. They wanted to take out Cuba, and they wanted the Vietnam War. And after the Bay of Pigs fiasco, he realized they lied to him. And he said, we're never doing that again. You know what I mean? I'm not listening to you assholes anymore. You lied straight to my face, and I can't trust you. If you remember correctly, he gave that speech saying he's going to scatter the CIA into a million pieces into the wind. Something along those lines, he said. So there was no love lost there. So I think that the CIA definitely had motive to take him out because they wanted that war, because war means big money. And the mob wanted Castro going so they could get back into Cuba and get their casinos going down there and everything again and making money, because he kicked the mob out of Cuba. And Cuba used to be a big moneymaker for the mafia. So that's motive for both of them. And then you look at who took out Lee Harvey Oswald. A nightclub owner named Jack Ruby that had mob ties. A lot of mob ties. So he just walks into the police station basement and just shoots a guy in the parking lot, like the parking garage area. That's crazy. Just walked right in and just popped him. So I think that it was our own government that took out JFK. And I think they took out RFK too. Because RFK, they didn't go after until he ran for president. And he was in the Democrat primary, and it was pretty apparent that he was going to win that primary. Once that happened, and they realized this dude's going to be running for president, and we're not going to be able to stop him. Because, see, there's a difference. And I want to explain this real quick for people that don't know. There's a big difference between the Secret Service detail you get as a candidate in a primary to where you are your party's candidate for the office of presidency. There's a big step up in Secret Service protection. So once they realized he was going to win and become the nominee for the Democrat Party, they knew that they needed to take him out before he was the nominee. Because once he was the nominee, you got a lot more protection from the Secret Service. Okay? So now, granted, the protection back then wasn't as good as it is now. There's a lot of things that have changed because they learned a lot from all of the different assassination attempts and the different failures they've had. They always learn from them and institute new stuff to make sure that doesn't happen again, right? Supposedly. I'm not a big fan of the Secret Service. After what happened in Pennsylvania with Trump, I mean, we talked about it on the show before. That was an absolute shit show. You can't tell me that those guys knew what the hell they were doing or were actually trying to protect him. You know what I mean? Because there was rookie mistakes that were made. And if you look at the JFK case, you got the same thing going on there. Rookie mistakes. Who puts a Democrat president, going through Dallas, Texas, where the people in Dallas, Texas hate his ass, right? At least that's what was thought at the time, that they didn't like Kennedy at all in Texas. There's a lot of people in Texas that didn't like him. So why do you put him in an open car going down through all those people with all of those high ground vantage points on that street? Why weren't all those windows secured and made sure that nobody was in them? You know, there's just so many things. Why did they change the route to make that right turn heading down into Dealey Plaza? Why did they do that? That guaranteed that the car had to slow way down to make that turn, giving them the perfect opportunity to take that shot. Why would they do that? That goes against everything that you would think would be the smartest way to do it, you know? So that is another thing that makes me think government involvement, you know, and if you look at it, who was responsible for Vietnam? Who was responsible for the Bay of Pigs? It was the CIA. They're the ones that wanted those wars. And Kennedy was in a verbal, at least, war with the CIA. So that makes perfect sense to me. And then once they realized RFK was going to win, they knew that RFK was going to figure out who killed his brother and go after him. And if you listen to RFK Jr., what he has to say about the subject, he is convinced beyond any doubt that the CIA killed his uncle and his father. He said so in several interviews. And he's looked into it extensively. He's seen a lot more information than we have. So if he believes that, and it completely fits the evidence, and it makes sense, and it feels right in your gut, I'm inclined to go with him, you know? Because, I mean, RFK Jr. was a Democrat. I don't know what he is now. He's probably going to end up being an independent, I would think. I mean, he's going to be working in the Trump administration, and thank God that he is, because he's doing that whole Make America Healthy Again thing, and that is so needed. And here's something I'll tell you. A lot of people think that I'm just this big Republican guy, right? And I hate all Democrats. That's not true. I have a ton of respect for RFK Jr. I had a ton of respect for JFK, and I had a ton of respect for RFK. I thought all of them were good men. You know, I didn't agree with everything they said. I didn't agree with every policy, but you're never going to agree with every policy. You know, I don't agree with every single policy Trump has. You know, but I believe that all three of those were really good men. And I would gladly vote for RFK Jr. if he ran for president again. You know, I would gladly vote for him because I believe in the man. And I'm so happy he's going to be part of everything and help to get a lot of that chemical shit and the dyes and all that stuff out of our food. That stuff's poison. You know, so good. I'm very, very happy about that. So that takes care of JFK, and that takes care of RFK. So now we're left with Martin Luther King Jr. Now, that's an interesting story as well, because Martin Luther King Jr. was causing a lot of trouble. Okay, you got to remember what the times were. It was segregation back then. You know, black people weren't allowed to go to school with white people. They weren't allowed to eat at the same counter as we were. They couldn't drink from the same fountains, that kind of stuff, right? They had to ride separate buses, and if they did ride our buses, they had to get up and move to the back of the bus if a white person got on. So there was a lot of racial injustice that was going on at that time that he was fighting against. And the problem with Martin Luther King Jr. was it was easy to demonize people like Malcolm X, right? Because they were militant. They talked about violence. They wanted a revolution against the white man. So it was very easy to get white people to go, yeah, screw that guy, man. Take him out. You know, nobody cares because he's a dick. He's trying to hurt us. So cool, take him out. But Martin Luther King Jr. was different because he was nonviolent. You know, his whole thing was just marching and letting your voice be heard and not giving in to violence. Even when they spray you with hoses, even when they sick dogs on you, all that kind of stuff, you don't give in to it. You just stand up for what you believe in, you protest it, but you don't fight. And you got to respect that, man. That's an amazing thing. You know, I got a hell of a lot of respect for Martin Luther King Jr. But our government didn't like him much because he was causing trouble. He was going against what the power structure at the time wanted to happen. Okay. Now you had with John Kennedy, you had a guy that believed in civil rights and wanted equality and wanted to end in, segregation and all that kind of stuff. But once he was gone, you're left with Johnson. And Johnson was a racist piece of trash. Lyndon Johnson was a horrible, horrible person. I mean, if you look this up, I'm not going to say it because it'll get the show demonetized and taken off the channel and all that kind of shit. But look up the quote he said about the Civil Rights Bill, about why he thought that they should vote for it. Because they realized they didn't have enough votes to stop it. The Democrats wanted to stop the Civil Rights Bill, but they didn't have enough votes to stop it. So look up on Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever, Yahoo, whatever search you use. Look up the Lyndon Johnson quote about the Civil Rights Bill. That if they passed it, he said, we will have those N-words voting for us for the next 100 years. Okay, look that up. You'll see I'm 100% right. He was a piece of trash. Absolute garbage. And J. Edgar Hoover, the cross-dresser and power-hungry borderline psychopath that ran the FBI at the time, absolutely hated Martin Luther King Jr. as well. And he kept extensive files on Martin Luther King Jr., including, some say, proof of affairs that he was having. He was cheating on his wife, apparently, with a couple different women. That's what they say. I don't know if that's true. And here's the thing, too, right? I doubt that's true. Now, it might be. I haven't seen the evidence, so I can't say definitively. But logically, if you think about it, he's a preacher. He's a man of God. And even more than that, he's a moral leader of the movement. Right? The whole point behind the civil rights movement was morality. It was, hey, this isn't right. Keeping black people from hanging out in the same places that white people are hanging out with and doing the same things that we do is wrong. You can't do that. You can't keep them from living their life the way they want, right? You can't force them to go other places. They should be allowed to eat with us. They should be allowed to go to school with us, all that kind of stuff, right? So the whole point of that movement was morality. It was wrong to deny them their basic human rights and equality with us. So if the leader of that movement, and some people will argue he wasn't the leader, that there was a lot of leaders of that movement back then, and that may be true. But he was the most prominent, I would say, of all of them. So he was, and I think it's fair to say he was the figurehead, at least, of the civil rights movement. He's who you think of when you think of the civil rights movement. So if you were able to take a man like that, who is a man of God and a moral leader of the movement, and show evidence of him having an affair, that would destroy the whole movement. Because back then it was different than it is now. Okay, now people have affairs. It's like, yes, so what? Everybody has an affair. Because we're a lot more evil of a society than we used to be. America used to be a godly place. It used to be a place where if you did those kind of things, like have affairs and have babies out of wedlock and all that kind of stuff, you were shunned. You were looked down upon by the community. Now, I'm not saying that stuff didn't happen. But what I'm saying is they covered up that stuff a lot. You know, we all know the famous stories about JFK. Man, he had a different chick in a White House damn near every week. I mean, he was a serial philanderer. He was constantly cheating on Jackie. I mean, if you really look at it, he was kind of a piece of shit too when it comes to that. Because he cheated a hell of a lot, right? But nobody talked about it. It was kind of covered up. So if you could bring that to light, that Martin Luther King Jr. is having an affair, and show that he's not a moral man, that he's a hypocrite, that he's claiming to be a man of God, but he's out here cheating and having, affairs and all this kind of stuff, it would destroy everything. So if they had evidence of that, why did they have to kill him? Think about that. Why not just ruin it? It's far more effective to ruin and discredit somebody than it is to assassinate them. Because by assassinating them, all you're doing is creating a martyr that's going to make the movement bigger than it ever was. By assassinating Martin Luther King Jr., you pretty much guaranteed that segregation was going to end. You pretty much guaranteed that everything that he was talking about and wanted was going to come to pass. Because you made him larger than life. Whereas if you would have just discredited him, you would have had a real shot at ending it before it ever got started, right? So the reason I say that is because why would you take him out and make it worse on yourself if you had information that could discredit him? So that's why I don't believe that they actually had evidence that he was cheating, that he was having affairs and stuff. I don't believe it. Now, as I said, it very well could be true, right? I don't know. I don't know for sure. But logically, it just doesn't make sense to me. Why would you take him out then? It would have been far more effective to just ruin the man. So I think our government had a big hand in taking out Martin Luther King Jr. as well. Now, I know the FBI didn't like him. I know that J. Edgar Hoover wanted him gone. But the FBI really doesn't do that. They'll rig investigations on you. They'll frame you for stuff. They'll do that kind of stuff. We've seen that recently. I mean, look at all the FBI has done in the last 8 years. I mean, they're you can't trust them people as far as you can throw them. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the FBI ought to be completely disbanded and shut down because they've proven that they're dirty and they're crooked as hell. You can't trust them. But they don't really do wet work. I mean, the people that do wet work, that's the CIA usually. And other agencies that nobody talks about that don't officially exist. But out of the agencies that we have to choose from that are publicly acknowledged to be real, the CIA would definitely fit the bill. And as we've already established, most likely they are the ones that did Kennedy and Kennedy. So if they did both of those, what makes you think that they didn't do MLK as well? I mean, hell, you could throw a lot of other people in the mix. I mean, there was a lot of people during that time period that were taken out. John Lennon was taken out. Now, he wasn't quite as political and all that kind of stuff, but he was starting to get that way. He was starting to speak out against war and against all this other stuff. So maybe they just got so happy killing people, they decided to keep on going. Who knows? But I would think definitely. And it's kind of interesting that every time you get a president that's trying to really change things and to make America great for the people, every single time they try to kill him. Goes all the way back. Lincoln, the very first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, who ended slavery. The reason they took him out was because after the Civil War ended, he was for not punishing the South, for allowing the Confederate States to rejoin the Union and not be punished. Not be like second-class citizens and occupied and treated like crap. Because he wanted unity. He wanted our country to come back together as Americans and just put it behind us. Well, that's not what everybody else in the North wanted. They wanted to put their boot down on the South's neck. So a lot of people say that might be why Lincoln got what he got. I mean, John Wilkes Booth was a racist Confederate sympathizer. So there's no doubt that he definitely wanted to kill Lincoln. And maybe it wasn't a big conspiracy with Lincoln, but it does fit into the whole thing of he wanted to change the way things were done and fix things, and they killed him for it. They got Kennedy. Then they got RFK. Then they got MLK. Now, MLK wasn't president. He wasn't even running, but he was changing things. The next one in line that you could say that about was Reagan. Reagan came in after Carter, and if you were alive then and you remember Jimmy Carter's presidency, it was horrible. He's one of the worst presidents this country's ever had. I remember sitting in line. Now I was just a kid, but I remember sitting in the car in long-ass lines waiting for gas. And you could only go on certain days, and you could only get so many gallons. That's how bad things had gotten. People thought America was over. And then Reagan comes in and changes everything. And Reagan, like Kennedy, was going to shut down the Fed. He was going to take out the CIA. Had a lot of the same goals, to clean up the government and get all this deep state bullshit out of it and bring the power back to the people and make people happy and wealthy and prosperous and safe. Well, they can't have that. They got to take him out. So they tried. They tried to assassinate Reagan with Hinckley. But they missed. Well, they didn't completely miss. They did shoot him, but he recovered. But it's kind of funny because after that, Reagan wasn't the same Reagan that he was before he got shot. I mean, he still did a lot of amazing things, and he changed our economy, and he really brought America back. You know, he was the first one to make America great again, honestly. But he wasn't full of piss and vinegar like he was when he first got elected. And he definitely backed off the deep state after they tried to kill him. And then you got Trump. Trump came in and they tried to kill him many times. They tried to throw him in prison. They tried to ruin his life. They smeared him every way you could possibly smear him with lie after lie after lie. And it's all proven to be false now. And they just kept on going, and they're doing it again. I mean, hell, they tried to kill him when he was running for president again. And then they tried to kill him on his golf course. And he just had his inauguration. They had to move that inside. They say it's because of the cold. But I got a sneaking suspicion that the real reason was because they weren't confident that Secret Service could protect him. Because the people that are against him really want him gone. You know, so it's just kind of funny how that keeps happening throughout history. Every time you have somebody who is a great, great man who is going to change the world and make life better for us, they take him out. And it's interesting because it's not just Republicans that they do it to. It's not just a thing of, this guy's a Republican, so we hate him, so we're going to kill him, right? Because the Democrats are kind of crazy like that. They do that a lot, all the way back to John Wilkes Booth. I mean, you know, but it's not just that. Because they got JFK and RFK too. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. was a Republican. He was publicly a Republican. He was very proud of it. But Kennedy, both Kennedys weren't. They were Democrats. And they took them out too. So it's less about whether you're a Democrat or a Republican and more about whether you're going to go along with the deep state's unquenchable thirst for war. That's really what it boils down to, because war makes people a lot of damn money. And they don't have to die because they're not the ones fighting. They send us to do that. They send normal Americans, the poor people, usually Southerners, is the ones who fight most of the wars because we're the ones that go and sign up the most. So they send us. They don't have to bleed. They don't have to die. They don't send their children usually. It's us. But they're the ones that make a ton of money off of it. They're the ones that are poisoning our food. And it's kind of poetic to me that they took out RFK and JFK. And RFK's son and JFK's nephew is the one who's going to make America healthy again. Who's going to stop them from putting all them poisons in our food and get us healthy and make us live again, you know, without all this disease and all this bullshit. That's very poetic to me, and I'm a huge fan, and I hope that he's successful, man. I really do. Anytime anybody wants to stand up and help the American people, I'm all for it. But the problem is with politicians is the overwhelming majority of them are full of shit. They're just liars, man. You know, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, liars. They pretend that they want to help people, and they act like they're going to be great presidents and they're going to be for the people and everybody's going to have a great life again. Never. They don't give a shit about you. They just screw you over. Then you had Bush, old W, piece of trash liar, man. That dude, I mean, he was a good old boy, but he didn't change anything for us. He made things worse with the Patriot Act. Can't stand that dude. You know, look at who they tried to run: McCain, Romney, garbage, both of them, absolute garbage. Both would have been horrible presidents. Biden, what? Really? Really? A geriatric, half senile guy who walks around touching and sniffing kids all the time. That's who we elect? Completely dirty, man. Dirty as hell. Taking bribes, breaking the law, total piece of garbage. So you got both sides of the aisle here, guys. This isn't Republican, Democrat. This is us and them. That's what you need to realize. We've only had a handful of people in my lifetime that have had that office that were actually for us. You had JFK. You had RFK, if he would have won, but they killed him before he could. You had Reagan before they shot him. And to some extent, after they shot him as well, he made our lives better and fixed the country and made our economy work again and did some great things. But he stopped way short of actually cleaning the mess up. And then you got Trump, who looks like might actually get it done, which would be amazing if he survives. I hope he does. I can tell you this, and whether you like him or you don't, you got to agree with this, because this is gospel truth. We ain't never had a president in my lifetime tougher than that man, who can take the abuse that gets spewed at him, the repeated assassination attempts, the repeated attempts to throw him in prison and ruin him, and he just keeps on fighting. I ain't never seen nothing like it. You know, but I think, getting back around to what we were actually talking about, I think that it was our government in all three cases that did it. Now, do I think that Oswald had anything to do with it, or that Sirhan had anything to do with it? Well, yeah, I think they did, but you know, like I said, Sirhan doesn't even remember it. He says he has no memory of it. A lot of people say that he was mind controlled through MK Ultra, which is a fascinating program. Maybe we'll do a show on that one day. We could talk about that for hours. On the Monarch programming and all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting stuff. But that's how a lot of this stuff happens, man. The CIA gets somebody who is kind of a loser, kind of a loner, is impressionable, has mental issues, and they start working on them, you know? And next thing you know, they're assassinating somebody, or they're shooting up a school, or they're going into a nightclub and shooting it up, all that kind of stuff. You know, all those people, they're all kind of kooky in their brain. That's one thing they all have in common, is that they all have mental illnesses. They all have seen psychiatrists. You know, and the theory is, I don't know how true it is, but the theory is that that's how they do it. That they work through the psychiatry, and they kind of brainwash you that way. You know, is that true, or is that just a conspiracy theory? I don't know for sure. You know, but I know that there's a lot of documentation on MK Ultra. There's a lot of documentation on mind control and all kinds of interesting stuff that they were doing with psychics and remote viewing and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's all there in black and white. You can look it up and you can read it for yourself. And I know our government lies to us all the time. All the time. They're constantly doing things to get into wars that turn out not to be true. Look how they got into Vietnam with a fake thing. You might say a black flag. Where they... See, I said black flag because I can't say the FF one, because that's one of those trigger words they get you for. But you all know what I'm saying. where they pretended like there was an attack and there wasn't. There's some really interesting theories about Pearl Harbor as well that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt through government documents that Pearl Harbor was not a surprise attack. They knew they were coming. They picked up radio chatter before they got there, a good amount of time before. They could have stopped it. But they allowed it to happen because they wanted to get into the war. That's what the theory is. And it's kind of backed up by actual government documents that state that they intercepted radio chatter before they attacked. And it was a substantial amount of time that they could have at least warned the people to be ready for it so they wouldn't have been caught by surprise. But they're constantly doing that stuff. You got all the stuff surrounding the World Trade Centers. You know, about September 11th and what happened that day. That a lot of people say that wasn't on the up and up. That was another one of those FFs, you know. And it's kind of interesting that you got 2 buildings that fall to the ground that were hit by airplanes, supposedly. But you got Building 7 that was never hit by nothing. And it fell too. How's that happen? Doesn't make any sense. But see, if you question any of that stuff, they call you a conspiracy theorist. But that's an honest question. How did that happen? How does an airplane crashing into a building cause it to fall directly in its own footprint with no falling either way? I mean, literally like a controlled demolition. We've all watched them on TV where they set off the explosives and the building falls right in its own footprint. You have to set those explosives exactly right. It's a very precise science to get that right, to make sure that building falls in its own footprint. It's not an easy thing to do, and it does not happen by chance. So how does that happen? When the plane hits and you see that big fireball come out, that is the jet fuel burning up. At the point of impact, it burned immediately. That was that giant. So the only thing burning inside that building was office furniture and paper and stuff. Because all the jet fuel burned off pretty much instantly. So how does furniture and papers burn hot enough to melt steel? That doesn't make any sense either, does it? There's so many things that don't make a whole lot of sense to me. Now, I'm not making any accusations. I'm not saying that it was an inside job or that it didn't happen or any crazy talk. I'm just asking questions. I don't know. It just seems weird to me. You know, and with what we've seen the last 8 years, man, one thing is for absolute certain. You cannot trust our government as far as you can throw them. They are some shady bastards. All of them are shady bastards, both sides. I don't trust any of them. They lie constantly. The media lies constantly. They ain't told us the truth about nigh on nothing. Everything they've said has been a lie. Everything they said about Trump, everything they said about the pandemic, everything they say about everything is a lie. All they do is get on there and lie to us. And it's funny because like a year later or something, it'll come out, oh, they were completely lying about that. It was absolute bullshit. And we all know it. But then they tell another lie tomorrow and some of you idiots still believe them. And I don't understand that at all. Like, don't you remember these are the same fucking people that lied to us about masks, lied to us about the jab, they lied to us about the Russian PP tape, they lied to us about the Steele dossier, they lied to us about the Ukraine call, they lie. That's all they do. Every one of those things is proven false. But they keep lying, and you keep believing them, and I don't understand why. It doesn't make any sense. Somebody lies to me over and over again. First thing I'm going to do when they tell me something is say, I don't trust you. Because you lied to me every day this week. So that means I can't trust what you say. Makes sense to me. But it is what it is, I guess. That's why they can get away with shit like killing the president. Because you got enough stupid people in this country that will vote blue no matter who or red until they're dead. And they don't give a damn what the truth is or what the facts are. They're going to go with their party no matter what. And the sad truth, and I've said it on this show a bunch of times, sad truth is like 95%, at least 95% of politicians are dirty. Republicans and Democrats are garbage. And they're not out for you. They're not looking out for you. They don't give a shit about you. They're looking out for their own pockets, their own wealth, their own power. That's all they care about. They're going to keep going to war because war makes money. And if you stand against that money, they're going to do a couple things to you. First, they're going to try to silence you. They do that by shadow banning you on all of your different platforms so that your message doesn't get out to people. If that doesn't work and you don't shut up, then they try smearing you. So they start running their mouth, telling lies about you. And then what happens is they'll tell a lie, and then the media will report that this person told this about you. And they don't say if it's a lie. They say, we can't substantiate it, but this is what they're saying. And then, so now it's in the media. So then the politician will go back and say, well, the media is reporting that this is what this guy did, right? It's called the wrap-up smear. Nancy Pelosi talked about it. You can look that up on YouTube and Google and all that stuff too. You can find it and watch it. She explained exactly how they do it. If that doesn't work, they can't smear you, then they'll frame you. They'll try to frame you for something and get you put in prison. If that doesn't stop you, then they take you out. But that's what they always do. Whenever anybody tries to rock the boat, whenever anybody tries to stand against it. And it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter whether you're rich, whether you're famous, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat. If you're trying to change the world and help people, they're going to stop you because they want to make their money. And they don't want the truth to get out, because if the truth gets out, their gravy train ends. Because the sad truth is, there's a hell of a lot more of us than there are of them. They can't stop us if we stand together. But we're never going to stand together because you got one side of idiots yelling about everybody's a fucking Nazi, like a bunch of retards. Then you got the other side yelling about everybody's a communist and all that. I mean, we're constantly fighting with each other. You got people fighting over who you fall in love with. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Who cares? We always fight each other. And if we're fighting each other, we're not fighting them. And some people need fighting against. Evil does exist. It is in this world. And you got to stand against it. And as long as you're fighting your brother or your sister over some stupid shit that don't matter, you ain't paying attention to what they're doing. And that's what they count on. That's why they put us against each other. So to wrap up my little section before I throw over to old boy, I would just say, let's stand together. And if something's good for the country and it's going to help us and make our lives better, then why don't we all just get on board and shut the hell up? You got people that are actually trying to fix things and make things better for you, and you're too busy complaining about stuff that doesn't even exist. Complete made-up nonsense. That's why they can get away with killing the presidents. That's why they can get away with killing MLK. That's why they can do all these things. And I just hope and pray that this stuff all gets released. Everybody can see what the truth is. Whatever the truth happens to be, let's see it. And I say that about not just these things that Trump declassified, but I want to see other stuff too. I want to see Project Bluebeam files. I want to see all the files on aliens, all the files on psychic abilities, all the files that they have on the MK Ultra program, the files that they have on remote viewing, the files they have on the human animal chimeras, where they were doing weird experiments trying to crossbreed people and animals to get superpowers and shit. That's all real, man. There's some of those documents have been released, but there's a lot more that haven't. Let's see them. Let's see what kind of shady shit they're up to. Because I guarantee you, man, if the normal American Democrat and the normal American Republican were to actually see what this government is really doing and what they're actually up to, and see the real files on Fauci and the gain of function stuff and the stuff that he did during AIDS, these people wouldn't be able to walk down the street. They are our enemies, man. They are the enemy of the people. That is the truth. 99.9% of the problems that we have with each other is because of them. They started the shit. It's kind of funny how you can argue online with people about politics all day, right? You'll be going back and forth, or about religion, or about sexuality, or gender, or any of these things, man, we'll go head to head and we'll fight all day about it with each other online. But those same people, when you see them in person, you're just hanging out having a good old time, aren't you? Because then you actually see the person, not the ideology, not the bullshit canned lines that they always say. You actually get to talk to the real person and hang out with them. And I think if we could just talk again, like we used to back in the old days, a lot of shit would get solved. Because you'd realize that a lot of us aren't that different than you, really. I mean, yeah, we're different. Don't get me wrong. Like me and Old Boy are completely different people. You know, he's from California. He's more liberal than I am. He's not a liberal, but he's more liberal than I am. We have completely different religious beliefs, completely different beliefs on a lot of different things, right? But we get along great. Why do we get along so good? Because we have respect for each other and we talk to each other. We don't talk at each other, we talk to each other. That's an important distinction. You got to be able to listen as well. You know, because in the end, man, we all just kind of want the same thing. Now, don't get me wrong. There are crazy ass people. You got crazy ass people on the left. You got crazy ass people on the right. The most extremes that they don't fall into this category because they're kind of loony. They've kind of lost it. You know what I mean? But the majority of people that are in the middle, which is most of the country, probably 70-80% of the country is kind of in the middle. Some go a little bit more left, a little bit more right, but they're kind of in the middle. They're not the extremes. Those people, they all kind of want the same thing. They want their kids to have a good life. They want to be able to have a decent job, making good money. They want a safe neighborhood. They want to be happy. It's all kind of the same. That's what we all want. We just have different ideas about little things. And that's where in the old days you used to be able to sit down and talk and iron the shit out. But now everything's so politicized all the time. It's so, we're all at each other's throat over nothing. And it's dumb. It doesn't make any damn sense. So with that being said, I'm going to step off my soapbox and I'm going to throw over to Old Boy so that he can give his opinion. And then we'll wrap up after that, I guess, depending on how long he goes. Go ahead, brother.
Well, we're kind of doing, that was like an in-between of we're screwed and staring, but yeah, 53 minutes later, so he went over for almost an hour. Let's start off. Yes, I think they all are connected. RFK, Martin Luther King, and Robert Kennedy. I think they've been connected for years, especially with Lincoln. I think the same people who do this all the time is involved in this. Even with Malcolm X, they killed him too. Bob Marley. You got to remember, there's a lot of people, and they were all about civil rights. They wanted to change this country. JFK did have problems because of Marilyn Monroe. Remember that, and then she got taken out. So you got to remember, there was talk about that, and they took her, and I believe they took care of her too. I believe there's a set of people who do this. Trump's a whole different story. He's caused a lot of things. If you like him or not, like James is saying, that's not the point. I don't really want to bring him up, but because this isn't this is a paranormal show. I'm not gonna, but he's a very different president than we've ever seen, and he's very different. Maybe other than him, George Washington, the dude went into war and fought and became the president. He was a whole different person, maybe on that lines. But, and I'm not saying that I'm a fan of Trump. I didn't even vote this year. I'm an independent voter. I'm very far in the middle. I have my opinions on both sides of it. I'm the new, the independent's the third party now. If you really want to go there, it's taken over the libertarian. We had the second, the third most votes. So 25% to 30% of people vote now are independent voters. So we really are a big part of elections now. But yeah, I believe it was all set up. I think remote viewing, I do believe that. I believe they do get people to kill people, and that's a whole nother show we need to do, and we haven't done it. That's something that we should go on. I don't know how that's going to work because we might get shadow bans, especially in this show. This show might even get flagged. Some of the stuff we're talking about with the FBI and the CIA. I won't go there. He's already said enough. Remember, Jesse Ventura said a lot of things when he went into the office. I wasn't the biggest fan of him because of what he did with suing the lady from American Sniper. But he fought for our country as a Navy SEAL. He was also in the 1% motorcycle gang. A lot of people don't really realize that either, but I'm not going to bring that up. But he told the truth, and they didn't want him on TV anymore. He showed this. He came out. He was a little too much real, and he said aliens exist. And he said a person who used to believe in God no longer believes in God anymore because of what he saw. And that's his opinion. I will say this. They need to bring out everything. But certain people won't let that happen. And it's not just the 1%. It's already come out that certain organizations, certain churches don't want stuff out either. It's a proven fact. Britain's coming out now saying that they're not allowed to say anything because the certain entity doesn't want them talking about stuff. And I don't need to bring them up. We know where they're at. I'll just say they're in Italy. They're very much a part of why a lot of stuff doesn't come out. And there's secret groups, like he was saying, that we don't even know, and that's a whole nother thing. We got to watch what we say because I don't want to get shadow banned. So I'm just saying certain things. There's certain people who run this world, man. And you got to realize it. And if you talk too much, they'll take. And what James forgot to say is the first thing they'll do is they'll try to buy you to shut you up. That's when he forgot. That's the first thing they'll do. And then everything else comes after that. What he said, I don't need to go back and to explain it. But he forgot that one aspect. They'll try to buy you first. If that doesn't work, then they'll deal with you in other ways. Martin Luther King, I knew somebody who knew him, said that some of the stuff about women was possibly true. Like I said, this is hearsay to somebody who knew him, and this is an older person who told me this. He said that he knew who she was. So, but like I said, this is all rumor. I knew somebody who knew him and told me this story, and everybody knew about it, and the woman was real, and he paid her off. But you know what? It all could be bullshit. It could all be stories, but I've heard stuff too about this. They would have went after him. You couldn't buy these guys. And that's the first thing that happened. And Robert Kennedy, was going after mafia. JFK had the mafia help him. And that was, like James was saying, it was more of a revenge thing. It could have been. If you ever seen JFK, the movie from Oliver Stone, it talks a lot about what happened with JFK. Don't mean if it's real or not, but the movie's out. Remember, they talk a whole bunch of stuff and how much a conspiracy this stuff was going on. There is a movie. It's very extreme. It's called Salo. I'm not going to say what the name is because this is it was made in the 70s, and it was about the 1%. And everything you can think of disturbing and vile happened in this movie. And the 1% did whatever they wanted. And they were so evil that they loved watching people get tortured, raped, sexually assaulted, beaten, anything humiliated, eating everything you can imagine. We don't need to get into what they were eating. You probably know. It just showed you how powerful they were. And this guy who made the movie back in the 70s made it to the point where back then they didn't have laws in Italy. And he was really, some of the stuff that was happening, he wanted to get it on film to make it look as real as he could. And some of the stuff was happening with sexual assault, stuff like that really did happen on set. Where the guy who was in the movie killed him, ran him over. That there was a experiment made. I don't know if you remember the prison guard thing where they did the experiment and the prison guards took it. There's actually a movie about it. It's very extremely violent in extreme movies. I'm an extreme fan. I love extreme horror movies. And that really happened. And they redid it again. It happened again because it just shows you how powerful people can be, and they'll just do whatever they want. I believe that. That's why I'm not going to say too much, because they can do whatever they want, and they have enough money to do it when they want. And you will never know when it's coming. I am very surprised they haven't offered me and James money yet, and they will. But you'll never know, because we'll never talk about it. When that happens, we know what's going to happen if we don't take the money. A lot of bad things would probably happen, to the point where you hate us too after they got done with what they had to do and make us, and people wouldn't care anymore. But like James says, once you become famous, you never lose it. It doesn't matter if you're living on the street begging for change. Just like Gary Coleman, I watched the show about this. Gary Coleman says he will always be remembered as Gary Coleman. Once you become something, just like James is, everybody knows who he is in the horror world, and writing and with the paranormal. And now everybody's knowing who I am. He's very much right on this. I've had to really change a lot of things in my life because I am becoming more known. It's the truth. I'm old boy now. James Ash doesn't exist, except the people who love me and my family. It's just like he's James Hershey Jr., the horror writer. It's all. It doesn't matter if he's cutting wood in the backyard. He's always going to be known that. We have people who are crazy and have tried to hit us up in crazy ways, and people think that we were meant to be with them and say crazy shit, and we have to deal with it. I have had a lot of crazy shit happen in the last year or two, and I now understand why he stays away from people, because fame, money, and power changes people. And this is where it's all coming to what I'm talking about. When you have people have money and they want a certain way and certain things done, and you don't want to go along with it, you don't start listening to them and take their bribes, or they'll start going after you. And if that doesn't work, they'll kill you. Straight up. Just, unfortunately, somebody that's in office now is too popular, and it would start a war. And it will. And people know that. But they still try to kill him. Now, we're not going to say who it was and why. Well, we all know why. But this won't be the end. It will happen one day down the line to another president or governor or somebody who doesn't go along with what they want. When people realize how powerful these people are, you will never understand how powerful these people are. I don't care what an organization, what gang, what mafia, whatever you exist, if you push certain people the wrong way, they'll get you. And they will. Do you think the president of Iran was magically killed for in an accidental helicopter? If you believe that, they got rid of him. I'm just going to leave it at that. And we know that the fog didn't just magically crash his helicopter. He said the wrong stuff to wrong people. Just some people are involved with some of the 1%, and they have their own little wars. And certain things will go back and forth. War will always make money. Unfortunately, they'll always push everyone's buttons with religion, race, sexuality, and belief systems. And equality of money, and getting everybody mad at each other and jealous of each other. In reality, most people hate each other is over jealousy and greed of where they should be at. Or some bullshit it's not true, just because, even if it is true or not, they're going to believe it anyway just so they can have something to hate you about. That's what happens. Greed is a very powerful thing. Greed, power, it's a very powerful thing, and money. If you have all that, you're going to do what you want. Yeah, we might not see what's really going on, and I'm not saying everybody who has money is bad. It's not true. But some of these people do what they want, and they do foul things, and they do crazy things that you'll never know. And if you did know, you wouldn't want to know. And they know people that can take care of those problems. That's why I never understood why people come out and say stuff, because then something bad happens to them. Unless you're like Corey Philman is surprising, because I thought they would deal with that, and he got it to the point where he knows the right people and he has information. If they do, it's coming out. He was smart. He outsmarted them. They made him look bad. Everybody thinks he's an idiot and he's a weirdo, but he isn't, because he's kept his career going. It doesn't matter what people think. He's still relevant. But he gave the right information to certain people who they don't know, and it's coming out. Something happens to him, everything's coming out. He kind of got them at a certain position where they don't need to say anything. And Trump's got them in a position now they don't know what to do. He's talking too much. He's going to talk about aliens. Has already come out. The British are coming out about that. That's something that's going to come out now. I don't know if you saw the last video, the 2 jets flying with the UFO. Just let's quit with this bullshit. Let's bring it out. No one cares anymore. Everybody can handle the aliens exist. 90% of people know it anyway. So let's just have it out. We know we're not the only people here. Who gives a fuck? Let's try to build from this. We can start helping each other. We can get this fucking off of this fucking planet, like Elon's been saying, because if we don't, we're going to die. So let's start moving away to other worlds and stop worrying about dumb shit that they don't care about. The aliens don't give a fuck. What we care about is trivial. They don't care. Why does everybody care? You know what? If you believe in some way, you want to be a certain way, then you know what? Do what you got to do. Don't fight about it. I'm not going to change my opinion. If you tell me I'm going to do this and that, I'm just going to laugh at you, okay? But there's people who actually just kill each other, shoot each other, beat each other up. And it's over frustration. And I don't think it's just because what they believe. They just got so much built up anger in their life because maybe something bad's going on, and just it gets triggers. It's called triggering. If you let things trigger you and you don't handle them in the right way, you'll always be falling for this shit with anybody. Who gives a fuck what somebody says about you? Is it true? If you let bother you that bad, then that's fine. I get it. If somebody says something about your wife or something, that's a different story. That goes far. But if they say something about me, I don't give a fuck. You know how much shit people say about me? I don't care. Am I going to go to bed tonight? Yes. Is James going to go to bed tonight? He's going to go play video games and laugh at you. Just like I'm going to laugh at you. They can say what they want. The problem is you got people who are willing to go the other way and try to kill you or attack you because they don't understand, or they're not educated enough. There's always going to be people with different opinions. But if you're willing to go kill over your opinion, you're no better than the person you're saying stuff about. Now, I get it. Racial shit, people like that, they should be gone. They should be not gone, but they should put them in an island and let them destroy themselves. That's my opinion. If you want to hate somebody for something stupid, send them away. Go send them in their own island and let them destroy each other. We're supposed to try to get along. I get it. There's always going to be differences, but if you believe a certain way, leave it alone. If somebody says, hey, I don't want to hear it, walk away. You don't sit there and keep harping on it. And that's the problem I have with certain people in religions. I don't give a fuck what you believe in. That's your business. I get it. If once you tell me something, I told you, hey, we're cool, I don't want to hear about it no more, you keep going on and on. You're doing it for purpose. You're trying to trigger me or anybody. I'm talking about any belief. It's you said what you had to say. I'm cool. Hey, I heard it. Yay, that's nice. But hey, God loves you, or Jehovah loves you, or Allah loves you. I'm just showing you. You keep going on with it. Well, my religion says that. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It says you're supposed to talk about it one time. In Christianity, you're only supposed to talk about it. You can always pray for somebody, but you're not supposed to continuously push it on people. I'm not going to go out. I know what I believe. I don't go to churches and start condemning them for believing in God. I don't do that. I don't care. It's not my business to tell them what to believe, and neither do I care. My belief says I don't give a fuck. Believe whatever he wants. That's his church. Why am I going to go to their situation and say something? Just like if you're going and doing your own thing and you go attack people and start preaching to them, you have no right to do that. You know what? The First Amendment is right. You have a freedom of speech. Doesn't mean that you don't have a freedom to get popped in your mouth. That's what people got to realize. You have to still watch what you say. Yeah, you're right. You have freedom to say whatever you want. You may win in court. Somebody may not care. I mean, I don't have a problem with anybody. That's what I'm saying with that. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to do. But they get it all riled up, just like he was saying. And now this is why we have all the issues we have. And then people get mad and people, they try to assassinate people over different beliefs. And that's something we don't need to be having. It's not going to change. You're just making the situation worse. Do you think there's going to be no retaliation? It's going to make it worse. Then we're going to even be more dysfunctional as a country. We're going to be more separated than ever. Then you're going to have wars going on in this country, civil wars. And there's some people in this country who want that to happen. And I hate to say that. I really don't ever want to see it. Neither does James ever want to see something with our own country back at civil war. I think it's inevitable. It's going to happen one day. But hopefully it doesn't. I do agree with everything he was saying with MLK. I think that certain organizations didn't like some of his policies, the Kennedys, and they took care of a lot of the Kennedys. Martin Luther King, he was causing too many problems, and they killed him. There's a lot of racism in this country, at that time especially. Bob Marley talked about certain things and they took care of him. John Lennon, whatever he believed in, he believed in certain socialism and stuff. That's fine. That was his belief. He didn't deserve to die because somebody didn't agree with it. They killed him because he was singing too much about peace and give peace a chance, and they murdered him. It just happens. Do I think JFK was the only person that was Lee Oswald? No, there was more people. It's proven fact there was more than one person. They just put it on him. They always blame it on somebody, like James said, that have not the best lives, had issues, in and out of trouble, loser types. I don't like to call anybody a loser, but stuff like that, not having the best life, and that's who they pick. I'm just not going to go on and on because I've been on for 15 minutes already, and we've had a long show, and my voice is just coming back from being sick for a week and a half. But this is the truth. And I'm not trying to make this anything about politics. I want people to hear this because we're staring. It just has to do with it. But it also has to do with paranormal. It has to do with a lot of things because we talked about a lot of things. Like ghosts are real. People need to start realizing they exist. Who the fuck do you think we're talking to on Spirit Boxes? Myself? Do you think James gets on there and stuff? No. It's real. And I don't care what you believe in. Maybe there is a God, maybe there isn't. Maybe there is gods, maybe there's millions of them. Maybe there's aliens are really gods, or maybe they're not. Maybe they made us. I'm just saying a bunch of theories. Maybe they don't want us to be known the truth because we won't be able to accept it. They made us. It's not impossible. You got to think about it. Back in those days, they didn't have fucking flying ships. They see something coming out. Oh, that's a god. You got to think about this. Could have been anything. But we'll never know till we die. And that's, or the truth comes out. Some of it's going to be released because they can't continuously keep hiding. Too much shit's been coming out about it. Too much stuff is out there. There's too many people talking. The aliens will be admitted it. They'll finally admit it. And and everybody will just like, okay, we already knew this. All the other stuff, like Robert Kennedy, they're already trying to block it because they don't want people to know the truth of how this country really works in other countries. And people need to start realizing just how life is. You're going to either accept it or you're going to be dealt with. It's never going to change. Never going to change. They'll always find something else. And the aliens come down here, they'll have another war to fight because they'll try to get us to hate each other. It's being done for purpose. And it always will be done for purpose. Because there's money being made, and that's the problem. If there's no money being made, people can't get rich. Think about that. They're going to continuously get rich while we keep dying. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed Staring into the Abyss tonight on ParaX Radio every Sunday nights at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern AM. The Best of Show Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Spotify. Hopefully we can get on Apple eventually. On YouTube, subscribe to James Hershey's YouTube page. You want merchandise, go to teespring.com. Staring in the Abyss. I think I'm saying it right. If I'm not, I'm probably not. But there's shirts. You can get my shirt from No Face, the book I wrote. Just so you guys know, it is on Kindle right now. I'm fighting with them about putting on hard copies. They're just, when you do everything yourself, it's a pain in the ass. But you can get it at Kindle right now. It's called Evil Without a Face. It's about my character No Face. It's about 215 pages. If you guys like that kind of stuff, like Stephen King, extreme horror, you guys will like it. That being said, I hope Happy New Year's. It's 2025. And we love you, Misfit, Sugar Ladies, Monster Lovers, and Demon Hunters. I love you, and have a fucking good night.
I think the biggest problem that we have is we can't have an honest conversation anymore. That's the problem. Because you got people that say outlandish shit that just isn't true. And it doesn't matter how many times you show them the truth. They're not going to listen. I stopped arguing politics with people long ago. I'll still talk about it. I'll still post stuff. I'll still get the truth out and that kind of thing. But I used to believe that these people, if you just explain to them and show them the evidence, that would be the end of it. That they would say, oh, okay, I see that that's true. But that literally has never happened. And I've had thousands of debates. And I've never, not one time, been debating politics with a liberal and had them say, oh, you know what, you're right. I can see that. Here's 10 articles that show exactly that. Here's video of it happening. Never. Not one time. It's just constantly saying dumb shit that doesn't make any sense. And I just stopped arguing. Because to me, if you cannot have an honest conversation founded in reality, then you're wasting time. Anytime you're going around calling people Nazis, you're an idiot, man. I don't have any time for you. Because that's just objectively not true. It is objectively not true. Especially when you're pointing it towards the party that supports the Jewish people. How does that make any sense? It's objectively not true. Now, you can not agree with their policies. That's fine. You can say, I don't believe that their policies are good for America. That's fine. But to pretend like they're Nazis or to call somebody Hitler, that's just dumb. It's just dumb. And it's objectively not true. And anybody with half a brain can see that. So it's an absolute waste of time. All you're going to do is piss people off, and you're going to end up fighting and arguing, and it's just a waste of time. And I mean, the same thing goes with really what we were talking about tonight. With all the times the government has lied to us, and they take people out like they did JFK and all that kind of stuff, right? We could sit here and talk about it till we're blue in the face, and now that the stuff has been released, you'll be able to read it yourself and see what the truth is. But for some people, that still won't matter. Even though they can read the government's own documents that tell exactly what happened, they still won't believe it. And that's a big problem that we have in this country. And I don't know how do we fix it. Because you can't argue with somebody who refuses to acknowledge fact. And unfortunately, that is what our political discourse in this country has turned into. Nobody will admit the truth. You just keep arguing back and forth and saying the same dumb shit over and over and over again. And nobody will ever say, you know what, you're right about that. Nobody changes their mind. Now, you have people that sway with the breeze. You have people that, when it's apparent that candidate A is going to win, then all of a sudden they support candidate A when they never did before. It's the same people that, if the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, they're like, I'm a Chiefs fan, even though they were never a Chiefs fan. Or like when the Patriots started winning the Super Bowl every year, all of a sudden they're the biggest Patriot fan in the world. They're walking around with their Patriot jerseys and all that stuff. They never supported the Patriots before. It's those same kind of people. They just kind of go wherever the popularity goes. But until we can be honest with each other, I don't think there's much hope. I mean, there has to be a serious, and pardon the turn of a phrase here, there has to be a serious come to Jesus moment in this country where people just say, you know what? It is objectively true that I have been lied to over and over and over again by the media and by politicians. They have continually lied to me. So there has to come that moment where you realize that and you say, you know what? I'm not going to listen to these people anymore. I'm going to unplug my brain from the bullshit devices and the bullshit propaganda, and I'm going to say, let me look at this myself and see if this is true. But that just doesn't exist anymore. Or if it does, it exists on a very small scale, and it's sad. I'm looking forward to the rapture. I'm looking forward to Jesus taking me out of this world. I'm not suicidal. I don't want to die. None of that kind of crazy bullshit. But I'm just looking forward to the day when we get raptured out. When I can be done with this place. Because it's sad. It's sad to watch, man. It's sad to, like, you've all known in your life people who have been in abusive relationships or abusive marriages or situations at work where their boss constantly berates them and treats them like crap. You've all known people like that. And you've all sat there and said, I don't understand why she just doesn't leave his ass. He beats her up every week. What is she thinking? Of course he's going to beat her up. She shouldn't stay. But in reality, that's what all of you are doing. When it comes to politics, when it comes to the news, when it comes to the government, y'all are an abused spouse. You guys are getting punched in the face over and over and over again by these people. And you keep coming back for more. And whenever somebody offers you a hand and tries to show you the truth and wake you the hell up, you turn on them. And you call them a racist or a Nazi or whatever. It's stupid. And so, I mean, I've reached a point in my life where I just don't care anymore. I don't try to argue with people. I don't try to show people the truth other than like doing this kind of stuff. But I mean, I don't get in debates with people and try to show them evidence and evidence and evidence because it never works. I've done it thousands of times and it never, not one time has worked. No matter what evidence you put in front of them, they will not acknowledge it. So I don't know how to fix that. But I know it's a big problem. And I think maybe a lot of people are just too dumb, And that sounds horrible, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I just don't think a lot of people just aren't that smart. And they just don't understand how to determine whether something's actually true or not. Because you got a problem, man. You got a problem. Well, the news said this. Okay, well, the news lies to you all the time. Or, okay, well, I was taught this in school. Okay, well, they lie to you in school all the time. Dude, I did a whole show on it once about all the stuff they teach you in school that's not true. That George Washington had wooden teeth. No, he didn't. Had a bunch of different kinds of teeth, including teeth made from slaves, which is crazy. He never had wooden teeth. The whole thing about him chopping down a cherry tree never happened. There's so many lies like that throughout history of shit that they've told you that it just is not true. Complete fabrication. But people believe everything. And that's the problem. You can't make them understand that they need to disconnect from all that they know and look at each thing as a separate thing and say, okay, let me look at the evidence on this. Let me look at every source I can find on this side and on this side. Let me take all of the data, all the evidence, look at it, and make an informed decision on what I think. That never happens. You're lucky if people will read the headlines. Then nobody's reading the whole articles. There's studies out there you can go read that prove a lot of shit I say. Nobody reads them. Nerds like me read them. I go and read those things. I can sit there and talk about them because I've read them. But I guarantee you 99% of the population has no idea that they even exist, much less read them. And that's the problem, is everybody's lazy. Everybody doesn't want to think for themselves. They want to be told what to do and told what to think. And as long as that continues, you're going to be slaves. That's just the truth. And unfortunately, we're in a situation in this country that it's going to take somebody like a Trump, somebody who doesn't care. You can't buy him. You can't scare him. He's going to do what he's going to do. It's going to take somebody like that to break the whole thing apart. He might be the one. He might not be the one. I don't put my faith in man. I put my faith in God. That's our true hope is Jesus. And until he comes back, it don't really matter a whole lot what happens on this world because it's all temporary anyway, But one thing I've learned in my years, it don't do you no good to try to show people the truth. It don't do you no good to try to argue with them about it because they're going to believe what they're going to believe. And there ain't a damn thing you can do to change that. Only thing you're going to do is make yourself a target. It happened to us. I mean, we got our show shadow banned. We've gotten threats. I've had people show up at my house before. It's crazy shit. That's what happens. And old boy said that he's surprised they haven't tried to buy us yet. Well, they have contacted us. We've gotten contacted by certain groups that I won't talk about. But it has happened. I was never offered any cash or nothing. Because the problem is they don't just say, hey, man, look, I'll give you $1 million if you chill. They don't do that. They try to get you to join up with them and become one of them and all that kind of stuff. And that's happened. But then the problem is all the horrible stuff that they do goes along with it. And I don't want to do none of that stuff. I'm not worshiping Satan. I'm not abusing children. I'm not doing any of that crap that they do. I'm a God-fearing man. If they came and just offered a bribe, I don't have nothing against people to take a bribe sometimes. If they say, look, we're going to pay you to shut your mouth, or we're going to destroy you and kill your family. You know what I mean? Your choice. Take the bribe, man. If you got to take the bribe, do what you got to do for your family. I don't judge nobody that does that kind of stuff. But that's a whole different situation than what the reality is of what you have to do to be successful in the entertainment industry. Whether it's shows, whether it's, YouTube, whether it's TV, movies, all that stuff. To be really successful, you reach a level where you find some success at first. And you start to really become something and to break out. And then you catch their attention. And then they approach you and they say, we could make your career a lot better. We could really get you to that next level. And at first it's all fun because you don't understand what's going on. You think that they're trying to help you, but it does reach a level to where you've got a decision to make. The light or the dark. I mean, that's what it boils down to, guys. And some people choose the dark path. And they become very, very successful. And they become household names and they're superstars. And everybody goes and watches their movies and listens to their music and reads their books. It does happen. And then some people choose the path of light. where they're not going to do those evil things. And they just fade away. They don't get the push that other people get. They don't have the giant careers, you know. And it's up to each individual person what they choose. But I'm not turning against God, 100%. But anyway, we got to roll because old boys give me all kinds of hand gestures and shit. That probably means that we're running way late. I'm an old redneck, man. I can sit here and talk to you guys for hours. Love you. Appreciate you. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. As always, up to you to make up your own mind. Let us know down in the comment section when this gets to YouTube what y'all think. And we'll catch you on the next one. Till we speak to you again. Love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
In order for the light to shine so brightly, the darkness must be present. Tune in every Monday at 10 o'clock for Dark Sun Rising on the ParaX Radio Network.
Hey, this is Lee.
And this is Michelle.
And this is Dustin from the Dead Zone.
Your source for everything paranormal, ParaX.